Hey, so welcome to the PSA Scotland West and Clarity Consultant collaboration for our summer sessions. So these were designed by the PSA committee in Scotland West, where we've been going now for about 6 months and we didn't want to stop in the summer. We just got momentum going, but as everyone knows, in July in Scotland, it just dies a death. And it's hard to get people to come to events. So we wanted to do some free webinars online. I don't know if anyone was on Susan's a few weeks ago, just to help you, keep your speaking business growing while you're potentially on holiday. You might be in Egypt like Ezra or Paris or Rona. I see you're not on a cruise ship speaking just
No,
now, you're back home.
God.
So my name's Heather. I run Clarity Consultants. I'm also the president for PSA Scotland West. And we're going to do about a 30-minute session with Mark, who I'll introduce in a wee second. I have to say he has the best introduction that I have read of any speaker so far. And it's all about how to get results from your social media without it taking over your life, which just sounds like the dream. So I am particularly excited for tonight as well. So I met Mark in Warrington when we were both speaking at the PSA Warrington event. And I absolutely loved his refreshing view on social media, and both our talks really aligned really well. So I instantly asked Mark to come up to Glasgow to talk, but our committee is just too well organised and we had no in-person slots for the rest of this year. So Mark kindly offered to do one of our summer sessions. So you are here to hear Mark speak, so let me give you the introduction. Our speaker tonight runs an international campaign against quiche. You can keep that for the Q&A at the end. He's performed on the flying trapeze at the Moscow State Circus. He's ridden a yak across a raging river in Tibet. He's been tear gassed by riot police in Venezuela. And he once came within moments of accidentally committing high treason while working as a TV reporter. So clearly a man who makes excellent life choices. I'd like to welcome a TEDx speaker, children's author, and confessed social media radical, Mark Saxby.
Thank you, Heather. Good to be with you all today. So I'm in Derbyshire, but actually I used to live in Glasgow when I was 12 years old, moved to Kings Park. Anybody in Kings Park? No,
Very
I
close.
hope not. Well, when I moved there as a Sassenach, I'm probably not even pronouncing that right. It was a real baptism of fire. I learned all these words I'd never heard before, like stucky, stonner, and there were children in the playground openly trading drugs, this weird drugs called tablet. Anyway, it was a baptism of fire, but it was after a year. Mum and Dad decided it was enough, and we moved back to the safety of England. I know that was a long time ago, and we're now moving on to where I am now. So I'm going to take you back actually to last summer when me and my wife celebrated our 10,000th day of marriage by returning to the place where we'd had our wedding anniversary 27 years earlier. So we went to Cyprus, to Paphos in particular. Anybody been to Paphos? Yeah, Paphos, beautiful place, love it. And there's a place there called Aphrodite's Rock. Catherine, do you remember that? Yeah, big rock that's sticking out of the sea. Apparently created when Apollo threw his sperm into the sea. It's a true story, apparently. Anyway, when we were there on our honeymoon, we decided to climb this incredible rock at sunset. Got to the top. There was incredibly, despite the fact that Paphos is quite very touristy in places, there was nobody up there. We had the rock to ourselves. It was just an incredible experience. So when we returned back last summer, we thought, okay, we'll do it all again. We'll climb the rock. But when we got there, suddenly all around were these signs, and the signs all read, "No climbing." We were like, "What? Oh, that's a shame. When did that change?" And of course, we Googled it, and what we read on Google was that the signs were there 30 years earlier. So just going to prove that not only is love blind, it's also illiterate. Anyway, it was an excellent trip. We love Cyprus, but even though it was an excellent trip, I don't think it's really been. I've not really been an excellent husband over the 27 years of marriage. And when I look back, I have to say a lot of it was down to my mother. She loved me a bit too much. In my 27 years of living at home, I never once made my own bed. I know, terrible. And I could see some head shaking there. Terrible. The most I ever got to cooking a meal was a bird's eye frozen curry. In fact, no, they can't even been frozen. I think they were out of the fridge. They weren't even called. They didn't have names in those days. They were just called curries. There was no like Balti or anything like. They were just called curries. At least in Grimsby, where I was brought up. Maybe other curries didn't were elsewhere. So when I got married, I thought, okay, right, I can't carry on like this. This is going to be a terrible marriage if I don't kind of pull my weight. So I started, I'd make the bed, and then Carrie would then push me aside, and she'd make the bed. I learned that little things that weren't good as signs of being an excellent husband were things like, when I take my clothes off at night, apparently it's not the done thing just to throw them on the floor by the side of the bed, even though they're at like 2 feet away from the wash basket, and leave them there for 2 or 3 nights. Apparently that's not the done thing. I also learned that playing on my PlayStation until the early hours of the morning when my beautiful wife was upstairs in bed was also probably not the best sign of being an excellent husband. It's amazing, really. We made 3 children. I've got Sam, who's 21, Kate, who's 19, and Amy, who is 12. I know what you're thinking. Yes, I would highly recommend a surprise third child. Don't tell the others. She's my favorite. Anyway, one of the things that I learned over time was by trying to be an excellent husband and by trying to be an excellent dad, you actually enjoy being married more, and you actually enjoy being a dad more. And those principles of excellence I took over into our business. So our business has several values. 3 of the most important ones are being honest, being ethical, and providing excellence. So what does excellence look like? Well, for me, excellence, the big changing point, and hopefully this will be interesting to you guys as well, is that I went to see a customer service talk, and the lady who gave the talk said that most people don't return to a business because the service was okay. And I thought, okay, isn't that good enough? And I realized it wasn't. And that was at the best, we were okay. We were no more than that. So I went back and I committed to try and make us excellent. So we got rid of the rich tea biscuits and brought in triple Belgium chocolate biscuits for our social media workshops that were so good. People dreamed about them the night before. Sad, but true. We would do things like when we found out that 55% of the effectiveness of training was in the follow-up. So at that time, we just gave people a lovely day and then sent them away. So from then on, we made it compulsory. That was for us a sign of excellence. Another sign of excellence was whenever somebody came to see us and it was raining, what we would do is go out to their cars, get their umbrella, we put the umbrella up over them to walk them from the car into our office so they never got wet. That for us was a sign of excellence. We'd done our research on social media to find out what their favorite music was when they were a teenager, and we played it when they walked through the door. And they would go, straight away, they'd go, wow, you play great music. And they're more likely to buy. That was a sign of excellence. So today's talk, how to get results through social media without it taking over your life, isn't the usual social media talk you've probably heard 100 times before with loads of tips and tricks and the kind of bits and pieces like that. Because what I'm going to do, I'm going to take you back to basics, not in a John Major way, but in a better way than that. Because I think the main reason why people fail on social media is because they don't have the right mindset. So my 3 rules today will help give you the right mindset, which will help you get results on social media. And rule number 1, tied in very well with my stories so far, is to be excellent. Be excellent. You've got to be excellent when it comes to social media. So who would describe what they do as excellent? Just give me a wave.
The work or the social media?
The work you do. Great. Who would describe what you do as pretty shoddy? No? So anybody who didn't put their hand up, I'm imagining you're kind of somewhere in between, excellently shoddy or shoddily excellent. Heather says there's an eclectic bunch in Scotland PSA. So she's fine with it all. What I would say though is if you're not excellent on social media, you need to stop. Because if no matter how good you are at what you do, if you're on social media and you're putting bad stuff out there, people will think you're rubbish at what you do because your social media is shoddy. And I say to a lot of people who come to us, honestly, don't get off social media altogether. If social media is not bringing the results you want, if it's not, you can't do it to a high enough standard, then go and do something else. Get networking, do email marketing, go knock on doors, paint pigeons, fly pigeons, do something else. Don't paint pigeons. I'm sure that's illegal. Just do something else rather than being on social media. So what does excellence look like? Well, I just want to clarify that excellence does not mean perfection, because it is impossible to be perfect. I've been doing this job for 15 years. I was one of the first specialist social media consultants in the UK. And we've raised £21 million in sales for us and our clients, but we still get it wrong on a regular basis because the algorithms are so tricky, because social media is changing so fast. So it's not about perfection, but it's about thinking, if I'm going to be on social media, I need to be excellent at all times if I want to truly get results without it taking over my life. So what does excellence look like? Well, excellence looks like Gemma. Gemma came to us. She'd been referred by somebody else and said, Mark, I want some LinkedIn training. So I asked her some questions. How have you got on so far? What's worked? What's not worked? And she'd made quite a bit of money. And I said, are you sure you need LinkedIn training? And Gemma replied with these amazing words, there's always more to learn, isn't there? Isn't that a great attitude? So we did the workshop and she went away. It was her and her husband running a training business. It was mental health, first aid type stuff. Within 2 years, she'd made more than £1 million through LinkedIn alone. Two-man business. That's what I call excellence. Excellence. Well, let me show you something. So this is, I'm going to show you a post that was done by a PSA member called Paul Dorner. And Paul, what we do as part of our workshop, as I say, we do support. So Paul had one of his support calls, and he'd not been very good so far. It was his first support call. I said, have you posted, Paul? And he said no. And he looked all downcast. But he said, I've written one now, though. Can you have a look at it? And we looked at the post, and it was a nice post, really well written after the first line. But the first line wasn't quite right because he'd not quite grasped what kind of lines work well on LinkedIn. So we created this top line. And you can see on the screenshot, hopefully, 360 likes, 205 comments and 10 reposts. And I said to him, Paul, this is amazing. What a great sign of excellence. Has it led to any leads? And he said, no, unfortunately it didn't. He said, but I have had my biggest ever sale in the last few weeks. Would you like, it came from a friend of mine, not through LinkedIn. Would you like me to read the text he sent me? And I thought, well, not really, because it didn't come through LinkedIn, but I better humor the guy. Go on then, read me the text. And he read out the text and it said, hi, Paul, I saw your post about Liz Truss on LinkedIn and thought I need to work with this guy. LinkedIn was the reason why he had the big success, but in his head, he was going back to what the relationship was. So I would say the excellence was creating a great post and responding really well and doing all the good things about it. But the lack of excellence was that he wasn't really measuring the results. And most organizations don't measure what really comes through LinkedIn or social media generally. Because often social media is part of the journey, it's not the whole journey. So that's one element of excellence. Let me show you another form of excellence. I'm going to put this into the chat. Can anybody tell me what this is? It's quite easy.
Something I need to get my 16-year-old to do.
So it's a simplified form of the LinkedIn algorithm.
It's a code.
Absolutely. Now, I'm going to actually look at it. I'm going to delete it in 3, 2, 1. Ask you questions about it. No, not really. But the point about the algorithm is that algorithms run all the social networks, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, X, they all have algorithms. And if we don't understand the algorithms, we're going to struggle to be excellent. So how do you understand the algorithms? Well, you understand the algorithms by measuring your results, by doing lots of reading, by going out there and doing it properly. So that's what I would say is excellence. What's not excellent? Well, not excellent is things like employing young people to do your social media just because they're young. Now, it's fine. There's some great young people out there, but they're not all good at understanding social media, because if you're going to run a good social media channel, you need to have business acumen. You need to be able to win people over. You need to be analytical. You need to be creative. There's a host of skills that's needed. It's very hard, I would say. And part of the reason why we slimmed our business down from having a team just down to me and my wife was because we just really struggled to find people who are good enough at being able to manage social media accounts. Lack of excellence is also maybe handing over your social media to VAs because they're cheap, or digital agencies because it's convenient, or PR agencies because they just said, oh, can we do it for you, or should we? And you said yes. That for me is not a sign of excellence unless they're truly bringing in the results that you want on social media. And that's the key. What's that excellence? Excellence is making sure that all your social media platforms, you're checking them regularly to make sure they're up to date. So I had an inquiry from L'Oreal, and L'Oreal came to me and said, Mark, we would like you to present at one of our events. And I said, how did you find me? And they said, oh, one of my colleagues did a search for people like you on LinkedIn, and your profile came up. We read your profile and we thought you're just the kind of person we need. Now that for me is a sign of excellence. But a lot of people's profiles, they've not looked at for the past 5 years. Now I've been on all your LinkedIn profiles, and I tell you what, some of you need to update your photos. You don't look like that anymore, you're no longer a teenager. We're so quick. Phil's picture still got hair on. I mean, it's not going to work, Phil. It's not really. How up to date are you? If you're going to be doing social media properly, you need to think, am I truly being excellent when it comes to social media? It's like AI. AI is a great tool, but only when it's used to help make your posts better, not to just say to AI, create me a post about mechanics or whatever it might be. What are you really doing on social media? What are you really doing on AI? Does it understand your tone of voice? AI is amazing. I mean, despite being in the BBC and ITV for 20 years, my grammar and spelling still awful, but then that's probably why BBC's fallen down the pan. But my wife would have to rewrite all my posts, change all my posts. Now AI does it in advance, so there's no mistakes there. So really good stuff. So that's rule number one. Rule number one, if you want to get results on social media without it taking over your life, is to be excellent. Okay, repeat after me. Be excellent. Can you say it out loud? Be excellent. Very good. It'll go into your brain easy that way, you see. Then you remember it in the morning and you'll be chanting it overnight, and then you'll just be telling the children in the morning. It'll be the most amazing, it'll be magical. Okay, so first bit of homework I'm going to give you. I would like you to write down 2 columns. And I'd like you to put on those 2 columns what you're excellent at, and in the other column, what you're not excellent at. I'll put some ideas in the chat of things in there you might want to add in there. Things like, are you achieving your objectives? Are you measuring? Are you creating good enough content? Are you generating leads? I mean, let's be honest, it's about generating sales, generating leads. Otherwise, what is social media for if you're on it as a business person? Because raising brand awareness, well, actually, really, it's very rare for somebody's objective to be raising brand awareness. It's really raising brand awareness to get sales. So it's thinking, am I really achieving that goal? So there's a bit of homework for you. 2 columns, excellent, and you can either put not so excellent or crap, whatever you takes your fancy on that second column. Be honest. Really, really rubbish. You could have your 3rd column if you really felt like you're kicking yourself. Okay, so that's rule number 1. Now, I met my wife, Carrie, when I was working at Pizza Hut in Grimsby. She was a waitress and I was a kitchen assistant, although I told everybody I was a chef because, those toppings don't put themselves on, Anyway, I remember the first day I met Carrie, we had a really bizarre unisex changing room in Pizza Hut Grimsby. Far too many girls saw me in my Mr. Grumpy boxer shorts before none of them really should have done, to be honest. I remember when I first met Carrie, she came in and she got amazing brown curly hair. And I loved her hair. I still do, actually, even though it's more blonde nowadays. I can't quite work out why. Although people say to me, why is your hair brown, Mark? Now you're in your 50s. And I say, well, I can't tell all of you because there's ladies in the room and the secret's just for men. Anyway, the point is about meeting Kerry is that when I spotted her and I wanted to get to know her and I spent time with her and I engaged her in conversation, I found out what she liked and that sort of thing. She became the target of my affections. And so when that day came, when I got down on one knee in Freshney Place Shopping Centre in Grimsby and I said, Kerry Saxby, will you? I didn't ask her to marry me. That'd be really sad. It was outside Primark, for goodness sake. No, I just wanted her to be my girlfriend, but I just thought, let's do it in a proper way. I knew she was going to say yes because I got to know her. So rule number 2, when it comes to getting results on social media without it taking over your life, is to be your target audience. Be your target audience. So let's think about our target audiences. Most of us have the same target audience. Most of us post for the same person, ourselves. We put out content that we like, that we think others should hear, that we're interested in, and we never truly think about what our potential clients or customers want to see. And then what we've got to do though is get that balance right, because the danger is then we narrowcast. So in Britain, what we're supposed to do if we narrowcast, or say for instance we put out content that's only just focused on that target audience, then what happens is then only a small group of people will actually want to engage with it, while the rest of your followers never will. So therefore, then your post gets strangled by the algorithm. So it's really about understanding your target audience and then fitting that together with what we talked about in the first section about excellence and algorithms and all the things that go along with it, and a bit in the third section, which I'll come to later. Now, I worked at the BBC for 11 years, and while I was at BBC Radio Derby, I decided I wanted to work for a national radio station. So I was speaking at a news editors conference in London, and at the time, BBC Radio 5 Live were planning to move to Salford in Manchester. So I thought, well, that's my next career move. So I called the head of news at 5 Live, said, I'm going to be in London for this news editors conference. Can I have a chat with you? Anyway, he said yes. He came down to the conference floor and he said, Mark, I've got 10 minutes. He said, what do you think of BBC Radio 5 Live? And I said, where's the effect of, it's rubbish. It's made by journalists for journalists. And he said, I agree. When do you want to start? And then later on, I turned it down because the work-life balance is awful. The trouble was with 5 Live was that the audience, the target audience that they'd been established as aiming towards was 35 to 55-year-olds. But the people putting together the shows were journalists in their 20s. So the content going out was for journalists in their 20s, and therefore then the listening figures were falling. Who is your target audience? What do they really want to see on social media? Why are they on there in the first place? Because I can tell you now, they're not on there because they're interested in your business. They're on there for all sorts of different reasons. We're doing the social media strategy for a bus company. They're a regional bus company across Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. During the lunch break, the marketing assistant was talking about how she'd moved house at the weekend. And I said, how did it go? And she said, yeah, it went really well. She said, but we got to the end of the day and we were really tired. So we went to Morrison's for a chicken dinner. And I'd never heard the phrase chicken dinner before. And I said, what's a chicken dinner? And she said, oh, it's a piece of chicken, breaded, I heard later on, breaded chicken, chips, beans and gravy. And I went, you are? Beans and gravy on the same plate, touching each other. Oh, and the breaded chicken. Anyway, that was it. A big debate we had in the bus company marketing room, all about whether it was ethically right to have beans and gravy on the same plate. Who would have beans and gravy on the same plate in this room? Oh my, no. Oh, two. That's lots of. Well, I did wonder whether I get a different response in Scotland. In London, nobody puts their hand up. I can tell you. And I said, that's your next post on social media. And they said, but what's that got to do with buses? And I said, it's got nothing to do with buses, but it's got everything to do with your target audience. Because what will happen is they will have a view on beans and gravy. They will then think, this bus company is speaking our language. They understand us. They'll engage with the post. Because they've engaged with their post, Facebook was likely to show their post to more people who've maybe not seen the post for a while because they were fed up of seeing buses. Then people, their friends who'd maybe never seen the content, saw they'd engage with the post, and then maybe they would then like the post page because of the beans and gravy. And then what happened is when the next posted about their bus trips on weekends, those people who like the beans and gravy post were more likely to see it because they'd engaged with the beans and gravy post. I hope I got it right in the end. Anyway, the point is, it gets wider. There's a widening circle because they understood their target audience. And they really got it. It was the most successful post they'd had for years. They really got it. A few days later, they did another post. It was a man in their office eating a Kit Kat in a heinous fashion. 2 fingers. And tell me what he was doing.
Eat them at once. Eat them both at once.
Eating them both at once. I mean, it's just wrong. Not as bad as quiche, but really wrong. Really, really wrong. So they got it. So who is your target audience? Who are you really trying to aim at? And I think sometimes as well, we need to be a bit more clever, because I think what we do is we end up aiming at an audience that we think is the right one, but isn't always. So we were working with solicitors in the West Midlands, and they were will writers, and their posts on social media weren't quite working. Here's one of them. So those are if you can't read it. Are you feeling poorly? Get a will before you die. Don't leave it too late. It's difficult to write a will when you're dead. Contact us on, feel free to take down the number if you want a will. Now, the point of this was that people generally don't want to be told to get a will when you're on social media. Nobody goes on social media thinking, oh, I really hope I see somebody talking about wills. Nobody responded. So I said to them during this LinkedIn workshop, who are your best referrers? And it turned out their best referrers were independent financial advisors. So I said, rather than aiming your social media at will writers, send messages via LinkedIn to IFAs, build a relationship, invite them out to coffee, get them to refer all their future clients to you. And that's what they did. And it generated them thousands of pounds in just a few months. And not even just a few months, because it will go on forever more, because if they carry on maintaining that relationship, they will forever be referred. So who are your natural referrers? Who are the people who are really going to sell you in? You know, if you're trying to get some people who are difficult to reach, who are the people who are most likely to refer that person in your direction? So, rule number two. Number two, when it comes to getting results on social media without taking over your life, is to be your target audience. Repeat after me. Be your target
audience.
Very good, very good. Okay, good stuff. So, again, another bit of homework. I'd like to think about, what does your target audience go onto social media for? Why are they there? What are they looking for? What's their motivations? And you might want to divide this up into different networks as well, because they'll be on different networks for different motivations. And if they are, and in terms of then the content that you think that you could put out, what's the content they really want to see? You know, I find if I put out content about social media workshops, I get very little engagement, very little reach. If I put out posts about how to be a better person, or how to be a better dad, or how to be a better boss, or how to treat people in a different way, they get so much better impact. And I'll talk about why that's important in the next section. Okay, so there's a bit of homework for you. Can anybody remember when they had their first ever chicken goujon? No, just me then. Just me. How strange. It was mine was 1996, and it was when I met. Well, it wasn't even I met. I went round to my mother-in-law's house for dinner for the first time, and my future mother-in-law's, I should say. Anyway, I came from a very more working class part of Grimsby, where you know, for dinner we'd have, you know, boiled potatoes, you know, some overcooked vegetables, and maybe a chop or a sausage if we were particularly fortunate. Anyway, I went round to Kerry's house, and her mum put on a buffet. I'd never seen a buffet before in a house. Incredible! I only seen them at weddings. Anyway, I thought this is amazing, and I sat down. I was munching on this breaded meat, and I said, "Oh, this is nice. What's this?" And Sue turned to me and she went, "Have you never heard of a chicken goujon?" I thought, that's small. Anyway, I hadn't. The meal went from bad to worse. Next thing was that Kerry's very annoying younger brother started to argue with me, or I argued with him, I can't quite remember. And Sue told us both to shut up. And then Kerry's stepdad, who was a rather rotund fellow, had spilt food down himself. And then partway through the meal, he just turned to me and he went, "Are you staring at my belly?" In a really aggressive tone. And I wasn't. Anyway, it wasn't really the best start to our relationship. So when we actually came back to see Sue, Kerry's mother, a year later to tell her we got engaged, her first words were, "Do you expect me to congratulate you?" And then didn't speak to us for a week. It took me a long time to win over Sue. Really long time to try and work out why she was the way she was and what her motivations were, and why she thought the way she did. I mean, it was intriguing. One of the things I learned, for instance, was when I was at the BBC, I had no credibility as a BBC reporter. But when I started my business, that was it, because that was the kind of person she was. She was entrepreneurial. She liked making money. So in her mind, suddenly I had credibility. So I took the time to get to know her. And when I look back, actually, I realized one of the great breakthroughs was when she was staying at my house. Or our house rather, in Leeds, when we were living in Leeds at the time, and I was in the shower, and I put my dressing gown on to come out of the shower, to cross the room, to cross the landing to our bedroom. You just have to imagine me naked underneath. Don't imagine that. So that's really sad. And I was smelling good. You know, I'd put that lemon stuff on. You know, it always makes people smell. Well, you think it does anyway, even if it just washes off in the shower. And I thought, okay, it's only a short walk from the bedroom to the landing. It'll be fine. So I opened the door, and to my horror, Sue was on the landing. Now, my horror wasn't because I was wearing a dressing gown. My horror was because Sue was only wearing her bra and her pants. She then proceeded to have a conversation with me that lasted 5 hours. Well, I say 5 hours. It was probably about 5 minutes, but it felt like 5 hours. And then I escaped, or I scurried into the bedroom, breathing heavily in an innocent way. Looking back now, I realised that was probably the breakthrough. That was that moment where I probably was finally accepted as a son-in-law. And actually, Sue suddenly died far too early, several years ago. And it was me who prayed with her as she said her final words in a Nottinghamshire hospice. The reason why I had really made that breakthrough with Sue, that she was treating me like a son in the end, was I'd taken the effort. I got to know her. And one of our problems when it comes to social media is we get too obsessed with the word media rather than the word social. We focus too much on the pictures, the videos, the content that's going out, rather than thinking, how are we actually engaging with people? How are we getting to know people? How are we making it easy for people to come towards us? So when I was a student in Sheffield, I studied journalism, and we went to a nightclub called the Palais. It was this kind of, one of those grotty nightclubs where it was cheap to get in, and often there wasn't many people there, but it was cheaper than the Lead Mill, which was far more trendy. Anyway, so one night I went in there, and when I was there, I saw this girl on the other side of the dance floor. And I thought, oh yeah, she looks quite pretty. I'm going to go and talk to her. The trouble was, I thought the trouble is that if I talk to a girl, I'm not very good at, I kind of crumble when I talk to a girl. So I thought, okay, right, I'm gonna win her over. I'm gonna think of a new technique. And as I was dancing, I thought, all right, I'm gonna go across and I'm gonna win her over. So I was, just made my way across. Phil, you can be the girl. I walked across and I went, kiss me. And she laughed. And I started backing away, absolutely mortified at probably the worst shut-up line known to mankind. And honestly, it's taken me 30 years to get over what is probably one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. But that's what we do on social media. We dive in for the kiss without really getting to know the person we want to do business with first. We try and sell to them, whether it's just by putting out messages on Facebook or Instagram about about our products or our services, or whether it's sending messages on LinkedIn, trying to get somebody to buy from us. We're diving in for the kiss when there's no relationship in the first place. Or we do the Joanne Stewart. So Joanne was a girl I went to school with in sixth form, and I really liked Joanne. She was petite, brown hair. I really liked her, and I'd heard at the time one of the best ways of winning over a girl was to make them laugh. So I spent the entire year trying to make Joanne Stewart laugh. And then finally that moment came. I thought, right, that's it. Surely, I think I'm reading the signs. Surely she likes me. So I took her into the cloakroom and I said, Joanne, will you go out with me? And she said those terrible words that just pain in the heart of every man. She said, but Mark, we're just friends. And I thought, flippin' heck, a whole year wasted. I should have gone after Debbie Pinkney instead. The trouble was, I'd stayed too long in the friend zone with Joanne. And again, we do that on social media. We're connected to loads of people. We have loads of people following us on social media, but we never actually tell them what we do. So we've got to get that balance. We can't dive in for the kiss and we can't be kind of, not telling people what we do. We've got to somehow get that balance to get it right. And it can happen and can be done well, but you've got to be clever of the way you do it. So one of the things that, well, actually, let me do something else. Who's on LinkedIn? Is everyone on LinkedIn in the room? Yeah? Okay, great. Dr. Rona, I'm going to use you as the typical way that most people connect on LinkedIn. Dr. Rona, will you connect with me?
Check your profile, yes.
So many jokes I could make about him needing the toilet right now.
But this is what we do, right?
That's exactly what we do.
Bugger off.
Connecting then ghost. Connecting then I won't intrude anymore. I won't tell you why I connected.
Here he comes.
Ah,
Hello.
Rona, would you like to buy some social media training?
Not just yet, thank you.
Oh, what? Can't believe it. And that's what we do on LinkedIn. We send those blank connection messages with nothing on there at all, with no attempt to build up a reputation, conversation, no attempt to build up rapport, and yet somehow we think that's going to get us business. I can tell you now, it doesn't. It really, really doesn't. Let me put something else in the chat that I think is really, really helpful when it comes to getting business on social media. We call this well, this is a process that's been around for quite a while. You may have seen some of it before, but it's called the Know, Like, Trust, Try, Buy, Repeat, Refer model. So let me talk you through it. Somebody, if you don't know it, somebody gets to know you on LinkedIn. Maybe they see your posts and then maybe you connect to them. Maybe you have a short conversation, but you're not really sure where to take it. Or maybe somebody follows you on Instagram and they get to know you because they can see kind of what you do. Then you work on the like. Who are you as a brand? Who are you as a person? What you do is you put out posts that reflect your personality as a brand or as a person. So they get to like you. And then they get to the trust element. Because you'll talk about the businesses you're working with, or you maybe talk about a review you've got, or somebody else posts about you, or you've got recommendations or reviews on your Google My Business page or on your Facebook or on your LinkedIn. And then they do the try. And the try is often what we miss out. What's the little thing they can do, which is a low risk factor that they can try? And a try could be a webinar, a try could be a coffee, a try could be buying a small element of what you do. And then they go to buy. And then, of course, they repeat. And because social media is so good at this, they refer again and again and again. I get recommendations from people I've never met who will tell others on LinkedIn, Mark is the best person to do social media for you, even though they've never met me in their life. That is the success of that sort of that. So let me give you an example here. This is another one of an inquiry we got. So I'm going to share my screen, and this is I put out a post. It's quite a controversial post in some ways, or an unusual post, maybe more than controversial. The line is, within minutes of our children being born, my wife and I gave them away to someone much better equipped to look after them. And the post is all about, it was very based around my Christian faith, which is we ultimately gave them to God, our Father, because we thought we can't look after them properly. And the post went on to talk about how it evolved. The post had come out because I'd met a lady on a train, a CEO, who could not let go of control of her business, and the whole business was suffering as a result. With the point being of the post that we need to let go, whether it's because of our faith or not because of faith, we need to let go because we can't control everything in life. Now you see on the right-hand side, I had a heart on the post from Ellie Stewart. She was a second-degree connection, so we weren't connected at the time. It's just a heart. That post on its own was still seen 15,000 times. Now I messaged Elif, I connected to her and said, hi Elif, great to see you engage with the post. Why did you engage with it? And she said, oh, I'm a Muslim and the faith element of the post really connected with me. And I said to her, oh, that's great, Elif. I said, I see you're a director of a speaker agency. You don't happen to be looking for any more speakers, do you? And she went, actually, we are. Can we have a meeting? And now we're on their books. She had no idea whether I was any good at speaking. She put me on there because she liked me and trusted me because of who I was. And probably maybe she looked at my profile as well and saw some things on there. But it was supercharged, super fast because of the like. So are you getting people to like you when it comes to social media? So the third point, the third way to get results on social media without taking over your life is to be social. Be social. Repeat after me. Be social. Very good. Well, thank you for all those who are taking part. You're making my evening much better. Very good. Okay, so we've got 3 rules. We had be excellent, be your target audience, and be social. But I've got a bit of a problem. And my problem is that as well as being a social media consultant, I also run a charity called Positive Social, which goes into schools and helps young people to spend less time on social media and smartphones and more time in the real world. I also do a talk called Be More Colin, where I go into workplaces and I inspire business people rather, to spend less time on their phones so they're more productive, have better mental health, and actually as well, they go home and they become better mums and dads. So what I don't want to be doing is kind of saying to you guys, spend more time on social media but actually I don't really want you to spend more time. I actually want you to spend less time. And I think the things I've talked about will help you spend less time on social media. So what does that mean? Well, if I look at those rules again. So be excellent. What does be excellent mean? Well, be excellent means if you're being excellent, you're putting out less content on social media, but the standard is higher, so it has a longer life. So if we look back on my LinkedIn post, for example, and LinkedIn is my main platform because that's where I get most of my leads from. I'm on the other platforms, but it's just that it's not as important to me, although we train people on them. If I look back on the last 7 days analytics of my LinkedIn posts, there are still 40 posts still being seen on the feed, including posts from 12 years ago and 7 years ago. Posts that still get engagement, even though they're posted 12 years ago, because they're so good that LinkedIn will keep on showing them forevermore. Well, I say evermore. I'm sure eventually they'll stop, but for a long, long time. That's a sign of excellence. So if you can raise your game on social media, you can do a whole lot less, but have better results. Be your target audience means really thinking, where is my true target audience that I can really have an impact on? So maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to stop, dancing on TikTok, Catherine. Maybe it's time to say goodbye to Elon Lin. Maybe it's time actually to say, really, we don't really need Instagram, Lisa. Honestly, or even not even be on LinkedIn. If it's not the way, if you're not going to genuinely get results because your target audience isn't really actively engaged and you can't serve them what you can serve them, then it's better to focus on one or at the most two networks and do them really, really well, rather than trying to be on loads of them and do them all averagely. And 3, be social. Well, we know that really the best things in life are being social. So I actually think let's stop hiding behind computers. Let's stop hiding behind social media, and let's start having more meetings, getting along to more PSA events. Let's have conversations. Let's have phone calls. And actually, that's the best way of being social. So yeah, there are 3 rules, but maybe there's a 4. So yeah, be excellent, be your target audience, be social, but most of all, be present. I'm going to put a link to a QR code in the chat. And what that does, if you'd like to have a copy of this presentation in a slightly longer form, but also you can also enter the draw to win a free 20-minute social media audit of a platform of your choice. So you can do that as well as sign up to our newsletter if you want to, and all sorts of other stuff. So I'm gonna put that in the link. If you can do it before, if you're interested, then fill in the form before 12 o'clock today. Because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the group. Seriously, you've got a 1 in 7 chance of winning the audit. That's good odds. That's better than the lottery. Absolutely better than the lottery. And one other thing I'm going to put in there as well is, if you like my humour and a 7 to 11-year-old who loves reading, then I'm going to put in the chat a link to my nearly best-selling, got number 2 in a minor category, my children's novel, The Last Chocolate Bar in the World, which is 187 copies sold. You could be the difference to making 188. So that's it from me, and I'm open now for questions.
Everyone, feel free to take yourself off mute and ask questions. Mark, I've got a couple in the chat here from Lynn. Lynn, do you just want to ask them, or do you want me to read them out for you?
That's cool. So, going back to one of the first points you made about kind of being your target audience, being your ideal client. When you on LinkedIn, I very clearly have a paying client. I've got the HR director, chief of people, or D&I, whoever it is, who's actually holding the budget, and they've got things that they care about. And then I've got my end users, who are my coachees, or the people who come along to the events that I design alongside the businesses, who get the benefit of the actual services. And I think it's quite tricky to talk to both those audiences and to really know them and be them. I can do it, but every time I sit down to create content, I find myself overcomplicating it, and Heather will attest to this, because I'm trying to say too much to too many. And I know the importance of one message, one person, but is it a case of alternating it? is it a case of choosing the end user and knowing that the paying client knows that they'll trust and buy me? How would you suggest tackling that as a mindset as well as actually creating the content?
So I just going back to what I kind of very badly explained because I did it in the wrong order in the presentation was about the difference in broadcasting and narrowcasting. So if you think, okay, Mike, your narrowcasting audience, the narrow part of your audience, the true target audience are the decision makers, but you're broadcasting to people who know you and love you already, who are more likely to engage. With the aim being if you can engage them, then the narrow-casted audience, the target audience, are more likely to see the post because the wider audience have engaged with the content in the first place.
So do you mean by that, for example, all my existing clients and like the people who refer me and who are like my little ambassadors because they've worked with me before, that I'm almost channeling my message to them, and in doing so, I'm getting the wider audience?
Yeah, although even then I would still be careful about being too narrow with them because I think you don't want to kind of make it an in club. You've got to still make it wide. You make it wider because I mean those guys because they know you already, Lynn. So I'm just closing the door because I'm getting hot in here. I'm not going to run away this time. Because they know you and love you already, they're likely to engage with your content anyway, whatever it's about, as long as it's good content, as long as it's well written, as long as it's got the good top lines and all that sort of stuff. So I would be more thinking, those people are an easy audience. If I can get them to engage, then there's a chance it could be seen by my target audience. And I would then focus on your target audience through messaging rather than through trying to hope they're going to see the posts.
So my broadcasting is my bigger message, and my narrowcasting is either in response to somebody's comment to that or sharing it with somebody I've connected with because I think it might be relevant to them.
Well, or also as well, always bearing in mind that every time you post, if somebody who was in your target audience saw that post, would they think it was relevant to them, even though you haven't actually written it to them? I mean, but you have really, but you haven't, if you know what I mean. It'd be like, I don't know, it'd be like shouting in the street for your children to come home for dinner. Really, you want your children to hear, but you also want their friends to hear so they can tell them if they've not heard it. But see, the ultimate audience is your children, but actually you want the whole street to hear, and you want your neighbors to hear because they don't want you to know you're a responsible mother. You want everyone to hear as well, but the key thing is it's got to get all the way to your children. I just made that analogy up. It may not work.
It's a good one. So is it almost like as you come further down your post, and this leads into my second question, if I can ask that, and then I'll shut up. Is that okay?
Go for it.
Is it almost like in your post? So let's say you're like this, the post that you showed, the example that you had up with your kids, right? And the first part of it's almost broadcast, but then as we're coming to the end of it, maybe we start to narrowcast because we're actually speaking to the buyer at that point rather than just the message that everyone might enjoy.
Yes, you could do it that way, as long as the people who are the broadcasters still get to the end and feel satisfied. So that the reason why that posted so well with 15,000 likes, despite only having 15,000 impressions, despite only having 61 likes, was because a lot of people read all the way to the end of the post because it was engaging enough. But the people at the end, you're right, there were only particular people who would respond, which is why there's only 61 likes. But people still read it because it was interesting and informative and entertaining enough to make them get there.
Yeah. And so my next question then, which was around like you describe making sure your content is engaging. And the example you gave was a kind of a storytelling. It had like that personal anecdote. It had the headlining, the eye-catching headline, capture the interest, and then it goes on to expand. I always worry that, I've created banks of things like that and never posted them because I think it starts to sound, I don't know, I just worry that it ends up feeling like, oh, here comes Lynn with another parable. And it's like, what's the kind of the mix of content that you like to use yourself?
Let me give you a stat. Let me ask you a question, actually, everyone. How often do you think the average person, the average user, goes onto LinkedIn? So do you think it's every day, put your hand up? Every week, put your hand up? Yeah, maybe once.
The average user, no. The average user is going to be really infrequent. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's actually once a month.
Mm-hmm.
So if nobody's going to get fed up of seeing your post, Lynn, because most people aren't on there. And actually, I'd also say as well, because I get a lot of people who come up to me in networking meetings and they'll say, oh, Mark, I've really missed your post. I can tell you've been on holiday. So I know the posts are so good that people love to read them. When you're boring, that's when people don't want to read them. That's when they complain. If you get remember, most people's posts on social media are terrible. They're terrible. Most people complain to me on a regular basis their LinkedIn posts are having a drop. Mine are up 59% in the last 90 days, or 54% it might be, because of the fact that actually my posts are good. So by having great posts and being consistent, actually then LinkedIn shows you to more people.
Thank you.
You're muted, Heather.
Any more questions? There's lots of seagulls outside. I had to mute myself.
Loads.
Loads. You get anyone to ask just now. What I've done is I've put Mark's details in the chat as well. And when you get your confirmation tonight, you've got a link that you can download all the chat afterwards. So if you're like me, you think of a million questions afterwards, then feel free to message Mark. He'll probably kill me for saying that, but you can connect with him on LinkedIn as well. He's very good at replying on LinkedIn.
Do
Can I
you
ask a question?
Go on, Rona.
So, Mark, I've heard various talks. I'm a bit of a technophobe, I should just say that from the start. But are there set times in the day or the week that are better for posting? Because I've heard some people say yes and no, and algorithms change and whatever. Can you give us any insight into that?
Yeah, midnight on Saturday nights before a bank holiday. That's the best time. Okay, not really. It's typically, I mean, it's always been the same for me over the 15 years. I found consistently that posting between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, or Thursdays is the best day of the week, in that order.
Is that for LinkedIn you're talking about there?
LinkedIn. With other platforms, I find generally that it's the evening times that you get better traction, but you're fighting against a much bigger audience. You've got to be even more excellent on there. So, but it does. I mean, it does change. It used to be that Instagram actually was better to post in the morning. I used to post 7 a.m., but I just find I don't get the traction anymore. So I post when I do rarely post, I post in the evening. But most people are online in the evening, so it is a better time. But you just gotta really shine.
Okay, thank you.
I'm curious about what your process is for creating content. Do you just sit down and brainstorm loads of ideas and just free write, or do you write to a specific brief or intention, or?
I have ideas to post probably every day of the week, and I use an app called Buffer, which is a free app, and you've got a thing on there called Drafts, and I write down the top line of my post or my ideas into drafts, and then when I want to write some stuff, I just go into my drafts, and I write from scratch. Or to be honest, I mean I've got about 100 drafts in at the moment in my buffer of ideas I've never used. I tend to just have new ideas every week of things that I think I should write about, depending on what's going on around me or what I hear or what's going on. But buffer as a way to capture. I think the key thing is we can often have lots of ideas, but it's capturing them. So that's why I think buffer's great because it's an app on your phone as well, so I can just write it straight into my phone that way. And buffer can be used across all the networks.
One more
Mark,
question, and you go, Elsa.
yeah, sorry. So I feel like in all things in business, there's a lot of conflicting advice. So in LinkedIn land, the conflicting advice that I hear is, so you've just said about being excellent and quality posts are most important. I hear a lot of people saying post every day, you've got to post every day, or your algorithm goes down or your reach goes down or yada yada. You can't take a holiday. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've only it's all social media is very subjective, and the reason why I say what I say is because I've been testing it for 15 years, and so therefore then I know what works for me. There are weeks where I will post every day because I've got more to say, there's more going on, and I've got a purpose behind it. But I don't post for every day for the sake of it. But I also as well I value my life. Every August we close down the business. I don't post on social media at all. And yet my post that I do when I come back in September always is one of my biggest ones of the year. So it doesn't matter that I've not posted. It's because actually I write a great post and everyone engages. LinkedIn shows it to more people. I get the existing audience and a new audience. So there's a lot of people out there who are very scaremongery or lots of little trends like, things like, oh, it's better not to post anymore. It's better just to do comments on people's posts and you'll get yourself seen more that way. Well, you might get your comments seen by more people. It doesn't mean people actually know what you do or will engage with you or connect with you. It's like, like today with with you guys. Obviously, I found out whether you guys were all going to be on the workshop, so I sent you a connection message. For me, that's social, building relationships, working for the future. Who knows what might happen by you guys being on here and me being lucky enough to see you guys on it.
Mark, thank you so much. I'm sure there's loads of questions, but I am very aware it's the evening and people will want to disappear off on time. So thank you so much. That was awesome. Like I say, Mark's details are there in the chat. Please make sure you enter the prize draw and also take down those details. Put a couple of other things in the chat as well. We have a West of Scotland WhatsApp. It's not the most chatty chat, so don't worry. Nobody needs another big, busy WhatsApp group in their life, but we just keep you up to date with things like this and other events. And then we've got our next PSA meeting on the 5th of August, which is in a couple of weeks, and it's all about speaking from inside out, so looking at confidence, delivery and alignment. And we've got Callum Moore, speaker coach, and we've also got Patrick Mercy from PSA coming across from Ireland. So it'll be amazing to see as many as possible of you there. This is being recorded. We will send it out. I will try and do it tonight. I'll just get it done as soon as we're finished. Please, again, everyone say a massive thank you for Mark for coming on doing this in your own time. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah.
Thank you.
And if you get any questions about PSA, about what Mark does, then please just drop us a message once I email you later on tonight. And thank you all for taking the time to come on tonight as well and listen. It was appreciated.
Thanks,
Thank
Heather.
you.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your holiday.
Bye.